Welcome, everybody. Exclusive interview time with the one and only Victor Hill. Welcome back to the show, Victor.
Thanks for having me back, man. I'm honored to get an invite back. When sometimes people don't ask you back.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to be like Shelley Winters. Speaking of Shelley Winters, well, first, this show's brought to you by corrupt politicians that don't like anything we have to say.
Wow. Wow, I like that. That.
Yeah, you gotta shout out to the sponsors sometimes.
Yeah.
But Shelley Winters, so next time you see him, you tell him that I cordially apologize. We got into a tiny little tiff on Facebook, and
no, not my two favorite guys. No, y'all did, man. What are y'all arguing about? Go ahead.
We were arguing about Kentucky politicians.
A subject I know nothing about, but go ahead.
He was kind of, I mean, he had a good point. He had a valid point. I understood where he was coming from, but I spend all day, every day in the state of Kentucky messing with those politicians. So I just brought up a point. Like, you can't fix problems in Washington if you can't fix problems in your own backyard.
Touche.
So he didn't like that very much, and he got a little snappy, but I still like Shelley Winters. He's still my favorite radio guy.
And y'all made up, and y'all still friends, right? Y'all just agree to disagree, right?
Yeah, we agree to disagree. Usually I agree with about everything he says.
Right. And everybody's not going to agree on everything anyway.
No.
Yeah.
And I thought when he interviewed you, he did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
He was great.
He was.
And I wouldn't expect anything different out of Shelley Winters. He's just phenomenal all the way around.
Yeah. And it's good. It's good. Like I said, it's just a healthy debate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He would beat me in any other topic.
But not that. Yeah. But that's your expertise, Kentucky.
That's my expertise.
Exactly.
Which let me run this by you too while we're talking about that state. So
sure.
If let's say person X is looking at getting indicted on a murder charge, but person X isn't handling the pressure very well of the potential indictment. And he starts going to the victim's family's house and parking out front and driving up and down the street. Do you think that was probably going to hurt his chances of not getting indicted?
Absolutely. Not to mention,
I mean,
you should be locked up for that. Yeah,
right.
I mean, that's stalking. Technically, that's aggravated stalking when you look at the circumstances.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought too. And like that was happening about an hour ago.
Was he trying to go to them to say, "Hey, I didn't do it"? I don't understand. Or was he trying to intimidate them, or what was he doing exactly?
It's an intimidation thing. That's what this guy does. He thinks he's in good with all these judges and lawyers and stuff in the county, so he just runs around, runs amok, and does whatever he wants.
Yeah, well, he's probably someone that needs to be taken into custody sooner than later for the safety.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what transpires out of that. So let's talk about some great topics that are specifically designed for the great Victor Hill.
Here we go.
So, well, for those of you who don't know, so Victor Hill's former sheriff of Clayton County, and we're going to talk about Clayton County because Victor and his team, they do a really good job of highlighting some of the issues in Clayton County. And me and Victor, we share things back and forth like almost every day. And so I'm seeing what he's digging up, and there's some real problems there. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. But Victor is also running for the Georgia 5th Congressional District, U.S. Congress representative. And I think I was watching some media outlets earlier today, and they were talking about that specific race that you're in, and as much as I think that specific media outlet, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but as much as they wanted to say, I don't want Victor Hill to be the representative, they had to admit that you're campaigning well and that the people in the district are responding well to your message. So see, there we go. We got somebody in Clayton County in the comments right now said Clayton needs better leadership. That's right.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a good piece when I was reading this article. I was like, wow, okay. So the media is taking note of your campaign and what you're trying to do and the footwork you're putting in. And so it made me think, I was like, well, what's Nikema Williams doing? She's not doing anything. It's almost like she's not even running. I don't see her doing any campaign events.
Well, let me say this, and I think I told you this before. I don't even know if I've ever met her before. So this race is not personal. They are races. Right. People always say that race is not personal. That's not necessarily true. There are races that are personal. I've been involved in some of them that were personal, and for obvious reasons. But this race isn't. We haven't. We don't know each other. I don't think we've ever met, and we don't have a reason to dislike each other. But I think what we're seeing is what you see with a lot of politicians. Sometimes you got to be careful when you have an elected office, especially if that elected office is down at the local capital and your county is 200 miles away, or it's all the way in DC. Right. You don't want to lose contact or you don't want to lose touch with the people in the district and what's in front of them every day. And there's two things that's on everybody's mind, whether you're white, black, Republican, Democrat, or whatever. Number one, everybody wants to be safe.
Yep.
Nobody wants to be victimized, and even more severe, nobody wants to have their family member victimized or anything like that. So that's an issue. Okay. And the 5th Congressional District is the most violent, crime-ridden district there is. And then, of course, the second. Yeah.
You're not even kidding.
Right. Right. Exactly. So that's a problem. And then, of course, the second thing is everybody wants to be able to support their family. But one thing I found from being sheriff, I've always said there's 3 things that would make a county good. And of course, that's going to be a safe county, a county with great school system, right, and a county with great economics. But in order to even get to the school system or whatever, or the economics, it has to be safe first. Because if the schools are places where kids are bringing guns or gangs are going and there's violence and people are afraid for their kids to go to school, no one can really concentrate if they're worrying about getting shot by another gang member or stabbed or they're worried about someone walking in. And then when you talk about economics, nobody can really say, well, I want to invest by building or bringing businesses here if they feel like they're going to be robbed. There are actually stores that have left Clayton County. Best Buy, when they were interviewed by our former COO, they said the reason that they had to leave is the shoplifting was so high they couldn't combat it as far it wasn't profitable. And there's other businesses that left. One guy I knew of and I hated because I always did business with him all the time, and everyone around him had gotten robbed. So he said he felt he had to leave, and that was right before I came in as sheriff, and why I was so adamant about cracking down hard on crime. So that's an issue that you just, and everyone's kind of overlooking that. The 5th Congressional District is the most homelessness, and these are issues that affect everybody. And before we can move to the next, we got to really deal with that first.
Right.
So I think the reason why I'm able to connect with so many people is people want to be safe. That makes sense.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think you're right. The way that you have it planned out, like how can you go into Washington and make all these promises like every other politician does in America? They go into Washington, they do, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But then you watch their districts fall apart. It's just like Mitch McConnell. Like the guy's been in Congress for 40 some years, but he's got the most impoverished district in the United States. Like, what have you been doing for your people this whole time? and I'm not trying to pick on Mitch McConnell too much. I do that on a daily basis anyway. But that's the fact of the matter. Like, how can you continually look your constituents in the face if you're spending every waking minute in Washington and you're not hearing your congressional district people anymore? And Clayton County, like you said, it has enough issues. I've been spending a lot of time in Clayton County lately, and I've noticed, like what you said about the businesses. Heading over to Terra Boulevard on some of those side streets, that's just empty building. I'm going, man, there's so much potential for growth economically, and it's just going to take the right leadership to come in and make some changes, make some adjustments, and the makeup of Clayton County is great. It's large. It's got a lot of population. So all you have to do is bring the economy there and bring good jobs, and it's going to thrive. And I think you were getting there when you were sheriff, and things were looking real good. And then you weren't sheriff, and now we've watched this go on a gradual decline.
And what else we got to witness too is the ripple effect of lawfare. Anyone that really knows the case knows it was never about a restraint chair.
Right.
That it all started over a political campaign where someone, the DA, was supporting one of their campaign workers, and the person they were supporting was actually a deputy that I fired for stealing guns. Was a person that was frequently in and out of jail and had been in a restraint chair before,
right,
and had to be placed in a restraint chair again. And that's what started the whole thing. And they never would charge me with him or bring him to trial because everyone would know this was really about a political campaign. And
right.
But I think anyone with any common sense would figure out, hey, it's kind of strange that I'm the first person in the United States of America, the first in the whole country, to ever be charged with simply putting someone in a restraint chair.
Right.
No injuries, no insult or whatever like that. But look at the ripple effect of it. And that's why it's so important that we fight lawfare, because lawfare doesn't just happen to politicians like me and celebrities like the Chris Lees or whoever. Look at the ripple effect. When politicians, DAs, and people like that conspire with criminals, hey, work with us to get this guy. Hey, look up people. Hey, were you in a restraint chair? Can we get you to come testify? Will you be a victim? Right. Well, yeah, sure. You can get your charges dropped, and maybe you can get some money down the road, or you'll get money down the road. So you conspire with violent criminals. And look at the result of that. How did they thank them? They took over the jail. 7 people have been murdered in the jail. You've seen some of the posts, takeovers at Quick Trip, takeovers with street races and stuff like that. Because once criminals realize, oh, wow, y'all going to protect us and y'all going to target the protectors instead of us, good, we're good. We can do whatever we want to do. And that's the result of what happened. When they said, hey, look, if you ever been in a restraint chair, the criminals realized it's no different than what happened when they started taking up for bad kids in schools and said no more corporal punishment.
Right.
And look what a mess that's been.
Yeah. You're
Teachers
exactly
getting
right.
jumped and everything like that. So I've always said it's always bigger. It's bigger than me. And the reason it's bigger than me is not because it affected so many people, but if prosecutors are willing to lie to grand juries and indict a sitting sheriff, how many people they do it to all the time? And we see it happen all the time where they indict people on things that don't fit the elements or whatever.
Right.
And that's why I think it resonates with people that we need to make that change in the criminal justice system where we reform grand juries. The grand jury is the one thing that is archaic and unconstitutional, where you can just walk in and tell 12 people what you want, and that person can't defend himself, can't have his attorney there, can't present evidence, and then he walks out and he's indicted. And that's how we ended up where we are now with all of the lawfare and the situation that happened with me.
Right. And I want to go back and touch on a couple of things. So I watched the evidence of the restraint chairs. And so I don't know, I never told you this, Victor, but when I started out in law enforcement, I was in corrections first. Just like a lot of officers do, they start in corrections and work their way up the ladder. So I remember I've used the restraint chair probably a dozen times. And I was watching the one with, I watched two of them, one with the Joseph Arnold video.
Yes.
And I'm sitting here and I'm watching this and I'm waiting on something so vile to happen, and it never did. And I'm going, what are they complaining about in this video? I see nothing wrong. And so that one threw me off. And because the media was like breaking evidence in the Victor Hill case. And
I was talking down to him, remember? And you can't talk down to criminals. You can't talk rough to them. I should have been more gentle, and I should have been like, hey man, I love you, Jesus loves you, or whatever like that. Now what they didn't show, now they showed it a month before when he was the target of a manhunt, but they quit showing it when I became the target of a manhunt, is him beating a 60 and 80-year-old woman in a grocery store. One and the 80-year-old lady was actually in not a wheelchair, but it's like a wheelchair. I forgot what you call it, a wheelchair scooter or whatever.
Right.
And he actually punches her off of it.
Yeah.
And I'm telling him in no uncertain terms to keep his hands off of women, to stay out of Clayton County. And when he said that the reason he beat a 60 and 80-year-old woman is because they cut in line in front of him for some chocolate milk, I told him he sounded like a jackass, and he did sound like a jackass. And if he's listening, you're a jackass, right? But but it was just, oh my God, how's he talking to this guy? He's talking down to him. He's not.
I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Exactly. So when you take away the ability of protectors to protect people, when you take away their ability to confront people who are violent and victimizing people who can't defend themselves, you get chaos. And that's what we got in Clayton County now. And what they did was embolden these guys. And it'll be an interesting study. The guy that I talked about first, he's running around harassing cops because he feels we actually got video of him. It'll come out in the documentary where he's chasing cops saying he's going to give them a speeding ticket. And hey, I'm the guy that got Victor Hill arrested. He's actually saying stuff like that.
Right.
And that's what happens when you get people like the prosecutors and the prosecutor, Tasha Moses, if you want to call her a prosecutor, she's really an idiot. And they actually go and conspire with these people. And how does he thank her? Now he's out harassing cops, and he's emboldened to do that. Another one of them went out and tried to kill his father, hit him with a hammer. Now he's serving a prison term. But holding these guys, and you tell them, hey, no one should talk rough to you. If you're potentially violent, you shouldn't be restrained for safety. So let's talk about that real quick now, because I know you got a question. I can see it. Let's talk about that. If how we were using the restraint chair was wrong, how do you explain we never had a murder or a riot, or we didn't have all the stabbing? And why? Because we did what we were trained to do.
Right.
Yeah. Pre-attack indicators, things that people indicate, hey, this person's potentially violent. Let's restrain him for his safety, our safety, and for observation. So obviously it worked. But for the first time in the history of the United States, is a criminal violation that you're supposed to go to prison for now. And then you take that away from that jail, and literally drugs, stabbings, extortions, gang rapes, 2 gang rapes. A mother called me and told her son was gang raped so brutally he had to go to the hospital because they had to do an operation on his anal area. Never happened under our watch. And part of the reason that didn't happen is because of the way we use the safety restraint chair. Then you promise these guys have pending lawsuits. And it's so interesting. I went to a pre-hearing on one, and it's going to be interesting because it's going to be a very, very good fight. This dummy shows up with a neck brace on. Now, he was in a restraint chair. What is it now? 4 or 5 years ago. and now he shows up with a neck brace. How do you explain? How do you explain? How do you explain that some of the guys, like I know you on my social media, you saw the guy calling me his daddy, right?
Yeah.
Because every time my people had to put him in a restraint chair, I would go down and talk to him because he was a special project of mine. Obviously, the guy didn't have any strong male figures or father figures. So I always go down and talk to him. So I know they had to at least put him in there 5 times. How that this guy was in the chair 5 to 8 times, no injuries, but this guy was in a chair 1 time and he's injured. How is it that 630 people were placed in the restraint chair by my staff? Not one injury, nobody urinated on themselves, no lawsuits. And then only the 6 people I'm accused of, all 6 of them are injured. And how do you explain it? It's not even logical.
And you guys record everything. So to me, I thought your officers did a fantastic job of working together as a unit to place the person inside the restraint chair. To me, it looked like going through, having been someone that's gone through restraint chair training, I think you guys followed protocols and procedures. To me, it makes total, like, I didn't see anything wrong. I watched 3 different videos and I didn't see not a single thing where I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't right. Y'all did the exact thing I would have done.
Then compare us to Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County used force to put them in a restraint chair. You know, everybody's up there on this, well, they weren't resisting at the time you put them in a restraint chair. Nobody said they were resisting at the time. They weren't resisting when Gwinnett, but Gwinnett went in and literally, in street terms, bum rushed them, threw them in a restraint chair. How we use it was differently. We just had people, hey, sit down in a restraint chair and then do that. First of all, if a person's uncontrollably violent, you're not going to get them in a restraint chair anyway.
No.
You're right. You're going to have to use force and get them at least in handcuffs and something else to even get them to the restraint chair. So for all the dummies talking about, hey, you got to be uncontrollably violent to go in a restraint chair, that's not even logical. It's supposed to be used as a prevention, just like when inmates sit in court all day like this with waist irons and leg chains on. They're not there because they were uncontrollably violent before they went to court. They're in restraints to make sure they don't do anything.
Yeah.
It's a precaution to make sure that they don't even have the ability to do it. And that's what restraints are for. No different than when we're on a search warrant and everybody is handcuffed. And some people there are not even going to jail, but for safety, we can't have them have the ability to reach for something or run or do whatever. I'm sure you've done traffic stops where you say, hey, for your safety and my safety, I'm going to put these cuffs on you. If we don't find anything, you can go. It's a procedure that we've done since I was a rookie. And I'm not going to talk about when I was a rookie because people might know how old I actually am. But it's been that way for years. And then all of a sudden, it becomes illegal. And why? Because it's a political prosecution that the DA was involved in. The federal judge is friends with the DA. The federal judge husband used to work for the DA. And the federal court judge in this is Facebook friends with one of the guys running against me for sheriff.
Yeah, so the conflict of interest is a huge thing. And in my investigations into Kentucky, I run into this all the time, where this little buddy system is going on. They call it the good old boy system. And where, they we don't even know each other, but then you see on their Facebook page, they go on vacations and they go golfing and they go to events together and their wives are all friends. And how do you get, there's no possible way that you can get as a defendant in a case is going to get a fair shake when these relationships are in play. And I know it's going to be hard because the law world kind of all knows each other for the most part.
They went to law school together. I mean, you got cases where an attorney is representing you, but she goes out to dinner occasionally with the judge that you're going ahead of time. So they're in there playing like attorney judge, but hell, they go out and drink together. Right. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole lot of incestuous relationships there.
Yeah. And then when you look at it, even more politically, they're all campaigning for donations, the elected ones and your judges and your everybody else that's running campaigns. And so they all depend on each other's money and their friends' money and their family's money. So they're constantly in cahoots with each other to get money. So that's an added aspect where you're not gonna step on the toes of the person who is helping you campaign.
Let me say this to you. That's a whole show that you and I are going to do. It's something I've been wanting to talk about. It was originally in my book. There's a reason I don't want to talk about it right yet, but there's a lot of incestuous relationships with attorneys.
Right.
And you got to be careful who you get to represent you. I just leave it at that.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're going with that. Mm-hmm. And we'll get to someday. And
yeah. Hopefully sooner than later. And that's going to be a whole show in itself.
Right. So the videos that we've been observing all over TikTok about Clayton County, the one that struck, I mean, every single one is more insane than the other one. But you had how many kids raided that the gas station? It was like 200 kids just running amok, going in and harassing people all over Clayton County, and it just looks like Mad Max out there in the streets sometimes. And there's when I go there, I make sure I park like close to light poles. So I have to strategically plan how I go to Clayton County when I go over there. And I don't have to do that in Henry County. I don't have to do that even in some parts. Well, DeKalb's kind of bad, but
and DeKalb's bad, but keep going.
But other counties in the surrounding areas, I don't have to do that in. But Clayton, I have to mind my P's and Q's when I'm over there, because I know that nobody knows who I am. I am a guest in that county, and if I get caught slipping, somebody's going to let me know. And so I'm very careful. What neighborhoods I go to. I just pretty much stay just as close to Terra Boulevard as possible. And
it's so interesting. But you're right. You're spot on. I'm not a preacher. I like to read the good book. And there's a scripture that says that bad will be termed as good and good will be termed as bad. And so think about it. Clayton County once had a reputation where bad guys didn't want to go there.
Right.
And we had a lot of peace and calm because of that reputation. And then we had a certain group. There's a group of people out there who believe they know better than the electorate. And if the electorate doesn't agree with them, then they feel that they should do something to make sure that the voters can't vote for a particular person.
Right.
So think about this. You got a county like that. And so you got this group of people, and all you need to be in that group of people is a DA. And then they can come up with anything they want to come up with. And then now they've created a situation they can't control. They didn't have a plan B. The only plan that these few individuals had is, well, we've got to get him convicted on something, because if he runs, he's going to win. And there's no way we can get you in if he's running, because if he runs, they're going to vote for him.
Right.
So anytime,
it's almost like it's almost like how they did Trump. They're like, whatever.
Nah, it is exactly what happened. People can get mad what they want. Let's go back to 2012. Actually, it happened to me first. Okay, 2012, I lose an election by a few votes. It was very suspicious, and we found out why it was suspicious. And guess what I did? You ain't gonna believe what I did. I actually called the electoral office to check on something, because based on the polling and the numbers we counted, it didn't quite match up. So it's a wonder I didn't get indicted for making that phone call, because I too made a call saying, hey, these numbers ain't looking right. Okay. Well, then I come back 4 years later and run it. When I announce I'm going to run, guess what the DA does? Put a special purpose grand jury to investigate my term when I was sheriff. Then they indict me and on RICO charges. The DAs in the metro area, they're real big on this RICO thing. They get real creative.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's how I got this Frank Lucas image, because I got these RICO charges. But what nobody didn't realize is I got indicted for stealing the police car 4 years ago. Because remember, I'm running 4 years later, I'm out of office. Well, 4 years ago, he stole his same police car 5 times. That's theft by taking. And every time he drove it out of town, every time he put gas in it, that's a predicate crime. So that goes into it. That becomes a felony. That was 27 of the counts. The same police car. So I mean, I stole it, brought it back to myself, and then while under indictment, I win, and then I go to court, and I'm acquitted. So the only difference is I won under indictment and I got acquitted, and then the president, he gets elected, but then they still get this conviction anyway. So then you got all these people running around, you're a convicted felon. Okay, before you say that, convicted on what and how? You got to be very careful. There's a lot of folks that are convicted falsely.
Right.
And I think a lot of people should know a lot about that, because we're seeing cases all over with false convictions. People who are convicted of crimes they're not guilty of, or whatever like that. There's a certain percentage of it. And I think it's higher than what we actually realize. And the reason why I say I think it's higher is look at all of the people who take pleas because they just don't have the money or the gumption to go, I just give me a plea and get me out of here. And they just take this thing on. And that's why this campaign is so important, to change that tweak in the law so that they're not able to take the judicial system and weaponize it against it. Whether you're doing it against the president, me, whoever, it's not right.
No, it's not. And it starts with step one, and that's the grand jury. You gotta fix the grand juries. That's step one, because that's the gatekeeper. Once you get indicted, now you're at the mercy of the state, and they're not going to want to drop your case for nothing. They're going to get some kind of return out of it.
And then one other thing I want people to think about, the ones that can think, is this: don't you find it mighty suspicious that all these years, no court, no conviction, never committed a crime, but all of a sudden, when you're running for re-election, next thing you look, grand jury investigation or whatever. So for people who are close, who feel, he's a convicted felon, or he must have done something. Whether you're talking about me or the president, I think it's mighty suspicious that neither one of us started getting indicted until we decided to run for office.
Right. Yeah, it's magical. And how the timing just worked out perfect.
And then it just happens like either when we're running for re-election, we're making a comeback because hey, we got to stop these guys from winning. So how you do it? And I said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't care who likes it. If you don't like me, fine. If you don't like the president, fine. But you don't indict us because we're running for office. You don't vote for us.
Right.
If you dislike me or dislike the president, then don't vote for us. But you think it's okay to indict people for an election? Those type of people need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And those are the people that need to be out of office. You know, I had a friend of mine, he joked, he said, hey, don't change the grand jury yet. Keep it that way to get them folks indicted, then change it. Because they need to be indicted.
I like the way your friend thinks, but we would be just as bad as they are.
I agree. You know, but we get where he's coming from. It was hilarious what he was saying. But again, you know, we tell everyone you can run for anything you want to when they're a kid. You can be president of the United States. You can do whatever. What we didn't tell them is there's a group of dummies out there in prosecutorial positions, and if they think that putting a felony on you can stop you from winning, they will do it. And though and unfortunately, you can only remove them every 4 years, and sometimes you can't even do it then, depending on who can run or not. But we can at least put checks and balances in places. One with that grand jury, where they're not just able to do that and victimize people that way. And not just, like I said, not just politicians, but they're doing it to people all of the time. I think I gave you that example about the coaches that our DA indicted for murder. And that's just ridiculous. First of all, let me say this. Here's another thing that they do that's perjury, and you're lying to a grand jury. A grand jury is not trained, so they don't know the elements of a crime.
Yeah, they're just citizens.
Okay, they're just citizens. So when you tell them to indict someone on murder, murder is premeditation. So I doubt if these coaches sat there and say, "Hey, run around the track one more time." Okay, is she dead yet? This was an unfortunate circumstance.
Right.
And I'm sure that it bothers them. It can't bother them as much as the parents and the family, but I'm sure they're not happy about that situation that happened on their watch.
Right.
But to indict them on something they're not guilty of, they're not guilty of murder. At best, involuntary manslaughter. So, these DAs, they go out there and they stack all these charges on people. And the reason they claim they do it is, well, we need as many charges we got because we don't get this one, then maybe we can get this one. Or we can get them to plead to what they're actually guilty of. That's not right. If you're actually guilty of manslaughter and you taking a plea, then why you want to plead to manslaughter? You want to plead to something lesser. But by indicting a person of something they're not guilty of, to me, that's a form of perjury. That's a form of false charging.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's Trump up charges and bully them into a corner where they'll plea out to the charge they should have been charged with in the first place.
That's exactly right.
It's a dirty game they play, and they continue to play. I've looked over court cases all day, every day. I see the same tactic over and over and over again, and everybody's doing it.
And remember, lawfare is not just criminal, but it's also civil. Right. Remember, in Clayton County, here's another thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about a lot. Okay, here's what's unique about, not unique about Clayton County, but unique about sheriffs, and which I don't think anyone intended. They didn't see this coming down the road. Okay, the county funds the sheriff's budget. The county also, if the sheriff is sued, they provide him with an attorney.
Right.
What if it's the chairman that's coordinating lawsuits against the sheriff? Like in my situation, we had a guy, Jeff Turner, he wanted to be sheriff. That has a lot to do with this situation. So anytime I would fire anybody, anytime something would happen, he would meet with them and say, "Sue, you're going to hit the Clayco lottery." So he's essentially promising them money. So he's coordinating lawsuits against me when he's supposed to be protecting the county's money. And why would he be involved in anything? I assure you this, everyone I fired needed to be fired. And everyone that I ever said should be in a chair should have been in a chair. So you got the guy who's responsible, not just for the county's money, but responsible for paying for my legal team, telling people to sue. Then they got this law firm that they got handling it until I had to finally say, "Hey, how can y'all handle my cases when y'all friends with this guy? Y'all not even really trying to represent me." So imagine this, you got them paying your attorneys. Are you really going to get real representation? So fast forward, they coordinate this criminal case and they coordinate with these guys and they tell them, "Hey, you can sue. You're in the restraint chair. Just say whatever." Okay. Well, by law, they're supposed to pay for my attorney's fees. Well, guess what? They just told the attorneys they're not paying for them anymore because they don't want to pay for it because they didn't get the outcome they wanted. Jeff Turner didn't make sheriff. He couldn't win. He couldn't even beat the dummy we got now, which shows how dumb he is. And then now they couldn't get what they want. Well, we're not paying for the attorneys anymore.
Right.
Well, now it's gotten interesting because the judge said, "Nah, y'all have to stay on the case." So they're ultimately going to have to pay these attorneys anyway.
Right.
But all because of something that they coordinated. They coordinated all of this. They created this whole situation just so they could say, "Hey, he's costing the county money." Well, you're the ones telling people to sue. And you're the ones making the settlement. Let me give you one more. After I'm out of office, allegedly, deputies at the sheriff's office beat a man unconscious who was in the restraint chair. The county settles and gives this guy $5 million. Who are the deputies? Why weren't they indicted?
Right.
No indictment, no investigation. You're saying it happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen. All kind of stuff has happened since I've been gone. Okay. But in that situation, you settle and you give $5 million, but you don't indict or send these guys to prison.
Right.
Right. But in my situation, no one was injured, no one was touched. But hey, you got to go to prison.
Right. Well, hopefully it wasn't that big, huge corrections officer that was in the one video I watched. He was a massive, massive man.
Yeah. And he I know exactly what you're talking about. And he was a good officer there. He does a great job. Yeah.
I'd hire him.
Absolutely.
And he's scary looking.
Yeah. He keeps order, that's for sure.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to kind of point out. So, and I think Victor, you do a good job, because I think you know what the heartbeat of your district is. And you know what's going on. I see videos, you're on the streets, you're meeting people, and former inmates are coming up and thanking you. You have a lot of popularity. Like, even though you're the sheriff, you were the former sheriff of Clayton County, people still respect you. And because you ran your county like someone's supposed to. You catch the bad guys, then you let the bad guys out when they're done serving their time. That's how it's supposed to go. And I didn't see, especially when you were talking to the guy in the restraint chair, Joseph Arnold, they might look at that as, if you're a super, super, ultra leftist, you're going to look at that and go, oh my gosh, what a horrible, horrible thing. But you were giving him tough love, and you were letting him know, like, hey, this isn't something that you need to be doing. This is what you did was wrong. And I don't think that we do enough of that critiquing. We do too much coddling, and it's enabling behavior. And so I think we need to do more tough love situations. And I didn't see anything wrong with any of the videos that I watched. I thought they were handled professionally. They were very direct. And that's what I would expect in a jail. You're not going to a Hilton, you're going to jail. And, I didn't see anybody get beat in any videos. No officers were beating anyone. Everyone was very, very direct. And that's how it's supposed to be.
There's another video, and I'm going to get it to you. I got access to it, that they played during the trial. For some reason, they never played it on TV.
Right.
And you hear on the media that I put a 17-year-old in a restraint chair. He's just 17. Okay, he's an adult. Okay, he wouldn't be at an adult jail.
Right.
And he did something very adult. And then there's another young man in a chair, and I'm talking to both of them. And it's not a very nice conversation. The other young man kicked in his grandmother's door. The police had to get there, fight with him. Then they took him to the hospital. He escapes from the hospital. And the crazy part is, I didn't even put this guy in the chair. I'm just talking to him. But guess what? They charged me with putting him in the chair. It's the only charge that I wasn't found guilty of, because there was a video showing a sergeant put him in the chair. Right. They didn't go indict the sergeant, because it's only illegal if I say put him in the chair.
Yeah. Well, sergeant wasn't running for office.
Exactly. So anyway, I'm talking to both of them. It's a very, very hardcore conversation. And I'm asking him, why are you kicking in your grandmother's door? Why are you doing such and such? And he gives me something. I said, listen, why don't you get out here and act like you got some sense, and go be respectful to her, and work and get a job and get out. And then I point to the 17-year-old. I said, you see that asshole over there? I said, he destroyed his mother's house. And he did. He literally destroyed the house, knocked out windows, pulled over the refrigerator. It was horrible, because she wouldn't buy a high-speed internet, or didn't have enough money to do it. Right, and then ran. But if you can see how these prosecutors, and they wouldn't bring in everything that happened. Oh, this poor kid, or whatever like that. And basically, I told both of them, hey, listen, do not show your ass again. If you come back here and show your ass again, y'all gonna sit in that chair for 16 hours. That's what I said. Okay, no different than me telling my nephew, next time you lose your job, I'm not gonna pay your bills. And of course, I pay his bills when he lost a job. But you say that just like we used to say, hey, don't make me come back here. So I'm giving them this. And then I say, let them out. Now, you got one guy kicked in his grandmother's door. Another guy that destroyed his mother's house. And they made them the victims and me the perpetrator.
Right.
And then contact them after the fact. Hey, were you in the chair? Is this you? Oh my God, you were a victim. Remember, that's nothing interesting. These people didn't go down and say, hey, I was in the chair. I'm a victim. I was tortured. They went and knocked on their doors, went and said, were you in the chair? Well, you're a victim now. Oh, really? Yeah. You can sue. Oh, can I sue? And some of us thinking they're supposed to get like $11 million or something. So out of 630 people who've been in the chair, these particular 6 people supposed to get $11 million. For what? And that's why it's so important that we deal with these type of issues. They're trying to extort money out of the government based on lies. And not only that, but you're empowering them. That crazy. The guy that kicked in his grandmama's door, what does he get out and do? Go and barricade himself in a house, and then later goes and beats his dad in the head with a hammer. Right. In prison now. Right. And this is who you're trying to say they're victims, and we should give them money, and they're not even injured, weren't hurt, never said they were injured or hurt. And you wonder why Clayton County is in chaos now. You wonder why the criminals run to jail. You right. wonder why you get shot at Walmart, Kroger, the skating rink, and they're all scared. You don't see the DA out. You don't see the sheriff out. I know he's got to be scared because the skating rink he skated at is where they were shooting up the other day. I don't think nobody's seen him there since.
I heard about that.
Right. So they've created an environment that they can't even control.
Yeah.
When you coddle criminals, when you tell them they're victims and we're going to protect you, and you make the cops the bad guys instead of the good guys, you get absolute chaos. And Clayton County is a textbook example of that.
Yeah, I agree. So when we look at the constituency, and obviously you know your people, it's very obvious when you go to Clayton County what the issues are. You drive around long enough, you'll figure it out. Yeah. But I want to do a comparison, and I can appreciate you for not making your campaign so personal. And she's I don't know what she's doing. I'm not going to say too much about it, but I just want to give a comparison to what her focal points are compared to what your focal points are in the campaign, because they're significantly different. And it's not that your method's bad and her method's bad. It's just how you have two very different candidates. And in my opinion, your way is going to be more effective for your constituency because you focus on the needs of the constituency, where hers are more along the lines of, green energy, all these things like,
weird. You go ahead and say it. Weird stuff. I know. Go ahead and say it.
It's all the far left weird stuff that those issues have no effect, no direct effect anyway on the people,
on the everyday guy
in Fulton County. These are issues these things don't help those people in the constituency. So when I look at it, she's advocating for Washington. She's not advocating for Clayton County, Fulton County, and the other people of the 5th District, where your plan is going to get direct relief to people. You're going to see the crime rates go down. You're going to see the violent events in the jails go down. You're going to see safe streets and safe neighborhoods. You're going to give the law enforcement back their control and respect in the communities. There's a lot of direct effects that's going to improve the people of your district very quickly once you implement
and the economics.
Right.
That's right.
And so to me, it's a no-brainer. Do I want somebody who's going to just jump on board the Bernie Sanders and AOC train and ride all of that? They want to say it's not billionaire money, but it is billionaire money that they're chasing. And, instead of coming back and working for your people, those people are going to be the ones that are going to reelect you. And plus, you have a passion for especially Clayton County. Like, you know the people of Clayton County. And when I watched the video, I didn't see an angry sheriff abusing his power. I saw a sheriff that showed a fatherly compassion and said, "Hey, you need to knock it off. This isn't going to work for you." And there's a time where you can keep going down the path you're going, and you're going to be right back here, or you can change your path. And that's what I got out of that, and that's what I think you should be doing. And that's you.
And they criminalize it. Yep, you're right. And they criminalize it, just like when they started criminalizing teachers and parents, and saw the chaos that brought. And now that they're doing it this way, you're absolutely right. Let me say this: you're very your perspective on it is very deep, and there's something else that needs to be done differently as well too. You and I've discussed this before. You know, I'm a Democrat. A lot of people ask me why am I running as a Democrat, and I gave a reason before. And you know, and I don't think I said this, and it's going somewhere with something that I would like to see handled different. You know, you don't change things from the outside as effective as you change it from the inside. It's just like when people say, well, I think cops should do this and that. We encourage them, why don't you join the police force? Because if you can do it better than we're doing, that's the way to do it. You can show us how it's done. And there are sometimes they have legit stuff, and there's some things they just can't see unless they actually have the job or they're putting into that particular predicament. But if you really want to affect change, you affect it from the inside. Right. Which is why I ran for sheriff. I saw things that could be done. And so the best way to get it done was just to run for sheriff. Well, that's how I feel about the Democratic Party. You know, right now the Democratic Party is polling very low, and it's a lot of stuff that has turned a lot of people against the Democratic Party. Instead of leaving the Democratic Party, I'd like to bring some strength to it and some common sense to it. And I'm doing it not for the Democratic Party, but for the Democratic voters. I believe that they deserve better. I believe that the Democratic Party, they would like to have some strong masculine energy on the Democratic side as well. Now, what does strong masculine energy in the Democratic Party mean? Does that mean you get up and you fight the Republicans on everything? No, that doesn't mean that. That also means strong negotiations. So where am I going with that? Right now, there are so many people out of work with this furlough. And the truth of the matter is the Democrats don't have the votes. They don't. We don't, you know, since I'm running as a Democrat. Okay, so to starve people, I would think the best thing, to starve people, I don't think is a good way to handle it. I would think the best thing to do is pass a budget and then work on budget amendments. Let's negotiate. Okay, if we don't agree with the budget, fine. There's things we want to get done. But don't have all these people suffering, not knowing how they're going to pay their mortgage payments. There are people who live paycheck to paycheck that work for the federal government. Right. Everyone that works for the federal government is not making a high salary. That's not the way to go. Okay, and no, Democrats don't have the votes. There's other ways to do this. And I would not be a proponent of doing it this way. And it may tick some people off, but I really don't care. I'm not going to have people stay out of work, have a shortage of TSA workers, the military not knowing how they're going to get paid. Hey, we got to negotiate, and we got to negotiate a different way. We can't negotiate this particular way because we don't have the votes. So we got to find another way to get to the table to negotiate for what we want, but not at the expense of people starving. Now, Napoleon, say what you want about him. And of course, people compare me to Napoleon a lot. I think we're the same height. But, you know, military out. And the one thing that he did I thought was profound was when they brought him his food, when most of his army was starving, he said, if my men don't eat, I don't eat. So if you're going to stop all these people from getting paid because it's your only leverage, well, then stop your check too. Do what Napoleon did.
I agree.
Say, hey, if they don't eat, then I don't eat. If you feel that strongly about it, cut your paycheck and let your house go into foreclosure like these other people are. because that's not how you should negotiate this. If you don't have the votes, don't make them suffer as a result.
Yeah, especially if you're a representative from a high poverty area, you're gonna be drastically affecting your own constituency. Like, how can you walk the streets of your district knowing that you caused all that? And that's going to be tough. That would be tough to do.
And I know they're arguing that now we're fighting for a better budget for the poor, and I get that, but that's not the way to do that, because you're still starving other people. And there's another way to do that. You can still fight it, but don't fight it at the expense of all of these families.
Yeah.
And I know some of these people. I know some of them that work. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people that you don't even realize work for the federal government, and they haven't been paid in a month.
Right. Yeah. So, what do they do? I mean,
right.
It's a tough spot for people to be in. And I think it's selfish of our leaders to put the American people in that situation to be bartered as leverage.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I hope somebody in the Democratic Party has the strength to say, hey, stop this. Let's go ahead and get this passed. Yeah. And then let's find another way to negotiate to get this done so that these people can get back to work and pay their bills and stuff like that.
Right. I agree. Because it's certainly not the last idea on the planet. Like, if they don't get this voted in how they want it, it's not the end of the world. They can put together, they could probably even get a bipartisan bill put together later, that they all can maybe come together and work on. And
here's what I learned when I was a state legislator, and every bill that you get passed, probably the most important bill I ever got passed, wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I had to get it passed. Then I was able to get amended and make it stronger, and actually dealt with protecting kids from being child molesters.
Right.
And that's a whole nother story we need to talk about, because there's a big story behind that bill. But if I wasn't able to negotiate and at least get it passed, we wouldn't even have that legislation now. So first thing, we got it passed. So then we got it amended. And sometimes that's what you got to do with a budget. Okay, well, I don't agree with this budget, but we got to get it passed because there's goods and services that the people need. And then now let's work on how we can get this amended. And if you want to use leverage, find another leverage way to use for the amending of the budget so that people can work and feed their families and everyone can get the services they're supposed to get. That's a logical way to do it without all these emotions. And that's what I mean when I say let's bring strong masculine energy to the Democratic Party. I'm not talking about let's get some rifles and run through the woods and shoot like I used to do in our sheriff. I'm talking about strong energy that's dealing with logic over emotion.
Right.
Because that's the only thing that's going to get something done.
Yeah, I agree. It always blows my mind because we've heard this the last year out of the left. Like, we need to really focus on building a masculine stance on our side of the party, and then they'll throw Tim Walz out, and then he'll have him trying to figure out how to load his rifle, and then you're like, come on, man, that's the best. That's your poster child. Go get somebody that you don't have to teach how to do the job. Like, get a real masculine figure that's not afraid to stand their ground. That's not afraid to root in and when times get tough and make hard decisions. And that's what they need. That they're missing that one leader that'll come through and say, look, if you guys want to stand over there and be scared of everything, just hand the keys over to me and old dad will take care of it. And that's kind of how they're missing that type of leadership right now. Right now, it just looks like a mess. Like, everybody is doing this, and it's crazy.
We've got to change that image. All Democrats are not soft on crime. How can we prove that? Right. I was elected overwhelmingly 4 times in Clayton County as a sheriff, and everyone knew that I was an iron fist on crime. So what does that tell you? The Democratic voters of that county wanted an iron fist to deal with the crime. So it bothers me that most of the cities ran by Democrats are crime ridden and they're out of control or whatever. We got to take note of that. We got to change that. We've got to change that and quit thinking that letting people out on bail with no bond and that a program is going to stop this violence. If it did, then all of the cities that do that should have the lowest crime. If Let's Love and Kiss criminals and do Hug a Thug programs work, then Clayton County should have the lowest crime there is. And it should be the best. Right. It's going to take an iron fist to deal with that. And, we've got to do what works because those areas, those people need that protection. I grew up impoverished until my family was able to work out of it and at least get us out to the suburbs. We were in a project, and I can tell you this: the police is needed there more than any place else. I mean, if you live on Lake Spivey, you're not just worried about walking out your house and getting shot. I mean, it's just not a lot. I'm not saying that it can't happen; it can, but it's possible, but it's not high probability. But when you're in an environment like that, you don't even have to be involved in anything. Just the straight bullets can take you. When you're around where people selling drugs and doing drive-by shootings and stuff like that. And those are the people who really elected me because they didn't want that around them. They didn't want their kids taking straight bullets and stuff like that. There has to be law enforcement there. And contrary to popular belief, law enforcement going in there and having a cookout and dancing on a video, it doesn't solve the problem. Because the killers and the drug dealers don't take that serious. They know, okay, here's a place I can rule, i.e. Clayton County. Everybody's making a dancing video, and the criminals have just taken over. If there's no iron fist there, if there's no red dog, if there's no cobra, if there's no figure there that's going to say them, be out of here by sundown, they take over. It's not going to be solved by a cookout. It's not going to be solved by the latest dance moves. It's not going to be solved by getting on TV and crying so you can show you're human too. Killers, drug dealers, they absolutely pay that no attention whatsoever. They laugh at it, and it's a green light that, hey, these guys are weak and feminine, and we can take this county over.
Right. And for the record, the dance video was Tasha Mosley, and that video was very cringe, and she lost a lot of aura points on that. It was.
I didn't know she had an aura, big. I'll give you that one. Go ahead.
She's a negative. She's a negative right now.
Okay, I got you.
See, I get it. See, Victor, here's the thing. Like, now that you're a TikTok superstar, you got to learn all the lingo.
I got you. Yeah. No, I'm trying to be one. You're the superstar. I got to learn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
I just yell at people on my TikTok. It's not that fun.
Maybe I need to try that.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes with like death threats and stuff, so I'm sure you're probably used to stuff like that.
But man, when you gonna have me back again? I always enjoy chatting with you, man.
Yeah. I love having you on the show because we get a real perspective of what really is going on and what really needs to be done. And I've contacted so many politicians in my life. And it's always a crapshoot, and it's probably a 30% chance that specific politician will ever take my complaint seriously and get back with me, or it'll be an automated letter back. Actually, Rand Paul sent me a really nice letter back a couple months ago, which I appreciated that because I could tell it wasn't just just bug off. But it's always difficult to actually talk to someone. And I don't feel that it's going to be, and I know you get bombarded with all kinds of stuff as a politician. I get that. So I try to be patient. But I'm not that patient because I have a whole bunch of people that come to me with all their problems and I'm going, why are these politicians not helping me solve their constituents' problems? And why am I the one that has to do it all? So that's something that I really, want to see get better, especially in Washington, is more communication for the people. Like a lot of times we don't know, like how many people in the 5th even knew who their district rep is. It's probably a lot. John Lewis, everybody knew who John Lewis was, but John Lewis was with the people all the time.
That's exactly right. We know all goes back to frontline generals. I love frontline generals, and all the ones that achieved true greatness went to the front lines and fought with their troops. It's effective, and that don't just mean going out there with your deputies or going out there with the military, but it also means, when that little lady calls you and tells you about this house across the street where there's a bunch of dogs and guys with guns, and you show up. And I used to do that on purpose for 2 reasons. Number one, I want her to know I'm coming. Number 2, it scared the hell out of bad guys because they're not expecting to see me there. Right. And a lot of times I just went and told them, be gone, and they would leave. Why don't you just go ahead and move? And if not, there was a remedy for that. There's a reason I used to go to murders. Remember, I used to be in homicide. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is this. Do you know when you're working a crime scene at a murder and you got this white tape and there's a crowd around, they used to always train us, whatever you do, take a picture of that crowd, because there's a 50% chance the person that killed the person is standing there looking, acting like, oh, what's going on? That's a sad, he's the actual killer. And I've had that happen plenty of times. So I've always go out to the homicide scene because I want the bad guys to know I'm involved. And they know if I'm involved, I'm going to bring the pain and I'm going to bring all the manpower needed to hunt them down, because I don't want that type of stuff in the county. Well, that's the type of U.S. congressman I'm going to be. When there's certain problems, I need to come see it for myself. Just a letter from a constituent aide is fine. But when you show up and you can actually see it, I can't command a jail from my office. That's why I walk my jail. I can't command the streets from my office. That's why I rode the streets every day. I can't make sure the courthouse is safe if I don't walk and test the security. All leadership should be like that. When you look at great CEOs, I don't care if it's a car plant, you'll see them down there, right there with the people, putting the cars together. They can't be there every day, but they go as much as they can so they don't lose touch with the people and don't lose touch with reality. Right. And that's what happens. If you stay too far in the office or too far down there, you lose touch with the actual reality of what's going on.
Yeah. And speaking of bringing the pain, I heard you had a tank.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, of course, what an urban legend is, right? Right. Urban legend stuff that just never. What's so interesting about urban legends is how they start. Because remember, there's part truth to everything. Now I can tell you the true story, but it'll take away from the urban legend. Do you want the urban legend to keep going, or you want the truth? Because we're gonna let. Like all the people in the judicial system who lie, say, let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story, which is why they lie to grand juries. But I can tell you the truth, but it's not as good it's not as good as me riding a tank down Terra Boulevard, which I never did.
With ARs in both hands.
Exactly.
That story sounds way cooler.
Some of these stories are so cool, even though they're not true. Sometimes I'm like, man, I hate dispelling them because they're cool. But there was an actual tank, and it was there before I even became sheriff. So I'm having a meeting with the staff, and we're trying to figure out what all our assets or whatever. And I never forget, well, Sheriff, we got a tank. That's what we mean, a tank. We got a tank. A tank? I mean, a real tank. And we're not talking about an armored vehicle like you see the cops in now. We're talking about a tank with the what you call those things, that long wheel that rolls around. I was like, how did we get that? Well, when we got the equipment from the military, we got it too. Well, where's it at? Well, it's at the old jail. What are we doing with it? I mean, it's just sitting there. What'd y'all get it for? We got it for SWAT. Well, why is it just sitting there? I say, can it help SWAT? Get it, paint it, and put the sheriff logo on it, and let's use it. Well, it turns out we can't use it anyway, because if you ride a tank on a road, it'll tear up the roadway. It'll tear up the asphalt. Right. So anyway, I don't know whose idea it was, but one time back when I used to talk to the news, because I didn't know any better, and I wasted time giving them interviews, I was telling them about the importance of the military giving us equipment that we couldn't afford, because we don't want the drug dealers to be better armed than we are. And I was showing them the equipment. The tank just happened to be there. And I said, we even got that from them, which happened before that. And from that, the urban legend spread. I was driving the tank on Terra Boulevard. There were inmates in the jail said, "Hey, that guy came to my house in the tank and tore up my yard." The tank never left the sheriff's office, and that tank, but that tank in the hearts and imaginations of everybody, it did. You know what I'm saying? And to
I think
this
it's
day, I
awesome.
hear about it. Yeah,
I
yeah.
would have let that rumor ride. All the bad guys be like, man, Victor Hill's gonna show up with the tank.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have talked about that one. And sometimes I have. I mean, I actually knocked on a door. I was campaigning. A lady told me, she said, "No, I'm voting for you. I remember seeing you drive down the street with a tank, and I thought it was great." And I mean, what am I gonna tell her? I mean, she just said she was gonna vote for me. I said, "Well, ma'am, thank you," and I went on, you know. But that's the true story. But we probably need to, other than refuting the lies that was told of me in the court of law, maybe we need to let that other stuff keep going because it's pretty cool.
Yes.
You know what I'm
There
saying?
was a tank and it had anti-aircraft rounds in it. And
absolutely.
We could build the tank story up, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of good stories out there. I mean, even when I was in Arkansas, some of those stories made it down there. And yeah. So that urban legend thing is a real theory. It's amazing how one thing can go and it can just fly, and then by the time people add and subtract to it, it becomes one hell of a story.
Did you have a fighter jet?
No. It's interesting. My best friend had one. Maybe that's how that got started. I mean, he's that guy.
Yeah,
he can afford to buy a fighter jet.
Yeah, I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline. It said Victor Hill's jet.
Yeah.
But I did read one about the tank.
Right.
Would be cool.
Yeah.
We need.
That's amazing too. Yeah, like I say, but that's the beauty of urban legends. I just ride on the jet. Next thing you look, I got one. Yeah.
This is it's just like the fishing story. You caught a bluegill and it turned into a big giant largemouth bass that's the biggest fish you've ever seen.
And that's all fun and games and beautiful until they take that type of craziness into the court of law, and then you get a false conviction.
Yep. Yeah. Same concept. I liked how you transitioned.
Exactly.
That was nice.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So I won't keep you too long, Victor, but I do want to bring up, since you have the Hill of Justice poster in the background,
sure.
Tell everybody what days you're on and where to find you.
Absolutely. If you go to the Hill of Justice on YouTube, just punch it in that way. You can see it. Please like and subscribe. And we have a syndicated one that comes out every Saturday. Matter of fact, I just filmed one tonight. And then, of course, we do live ones. And lately, we've been doing some very interesting ones. We've had some very interesting guests. Matter of fact, I got contacted by a former officer. And when I say former, I'm not talking about a long time ago. And he's going to come on the show this weekend. It's going to be very interesting. He's going to tell us about things in the jail that never got out. Officer stabbed in the shoulder, a gang rape. And, it's interesting how this stuff doesn't make it to the news, or how the sheriff's office doesn't put it out.
If you were sheriff, they would make it to the news.
Absolutely. I'm sure if there were people getting gang raped in the jail when I was there, and drugs or whatever, they'd be out there every day. So it goes to show you, not only do we have DAs with selective prosecution, but we have a media with selective reporting.
Yeah.
And that's very, very interesting as well, because the things that are being confirmed. There was actually an escape at the Clayton County Jail a few days ago. Never made the news. Yeah, and the sheriff's office never put it out. So imagine you got a guy at large, and that's important to notify the public, because, what's he going to do? Go find a job and start a family?
Right.
Then you got to get those people soon, because they're forced to commit crimes. They're going to have to steal a car, maybe break in somebody's house, and that's why escapees are so dangerous, because you got to search every house, because they could well get into someone's house and hold them hostage because they need shelter. So when you don't notify the public that you got an escapee, you're not helping them. You're putting them at further risk.
Right.
But of course, you're right. Exactly.
It's funny. It's funny that you bring that up, because I've seen more people in Clayton County in the last 2 days get more worried about the truck that tipped over with all the monkeys in it. They're like, we're gonna shoot those monkeys if they end up in Clayco. like y'all know you got somebody that broke out of jail, right, running around the county, but you're worried about the monkeys and the trailers. So yeah, that was kind of funny. But that's Clayton County for you.
So, well, maybe it's from that movie Outbreak that got them.
Yeah, I do think they're they do have diseases. I think some of them have like COVID. They were like lab monkeys, I think.
Man, every horrible disease has been traced back to a monkey. At least that's what we were told. I mean, I remember when they were saying that's how AIDS came about. I'm not saying I don't know whatever, but I heard that a long time ago that it was transmitted by a monkey or something.
Might have
been. I mean, who knows, man? I'm not qualified to be with the health department. Now I do realize that now is a qualification to be sheriff. You got to be with the health department, and that way you put all the diseases on the cars. But I didn't have that qualification when I was there. You know what I'm saying?
You was just doing what the CDC told you to do.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right.
But the Hill of Justice on YouTube, check it out, like and subscribe, and you'll get to hear all of Victor Hill's great ideas and how he's going to fix the world, and especially the 5th District. Thanks for coming on, Victor, and we're going to do it again. This is my entertainment for the week. So
yeah, man, I enjoy it, man. I mean, it's just fun. It's just like sitting around having a beer with a cool guy, Of course, this is a health drink,
That is a health drink. We confirmed it beforehand.
Exactly. We confirmed it. But no, man, I enjoyed talking to you, and man, I hope you have me back soon. I hope we can at least get together once a month and chop it up. And you know what? We'd love to have you in the Hill of Justice one day. That would be cool.
Bring it on. I'm down.
Yeah, I'm absolutely.
Down. That's a good gang. I like watching those guys. Like y'all are fun on there. So I'll be very, very happy to come on there and hang out with you guys.
Yeah, we're gonna make that happen. It'll be good. And the topics that we got coming up, especially stuff on the jail and stuff like that, you'd be perfect for.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Yep, thank you. And we're out.
All right. Absolutely.